Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight. Good morning, daylight burners. How are we doing? It is a pretty wonderful day today. Nice and cool, got a little cloud cover, and I think it's supposed to not be quite as hot today. We got a little rain shower last night, not quite enough to knock the dust down, but for a few minutes anyways. And it's just shaping up to be a pretty good day. So I got a pretty good treat for you here in a couple minutes. My dad, Mr. Wesley McKinley, the man, the myth, the legend himself, is going to call in, and we're going to do a little show. So strap in, buckle up, get a seat, sit down deep, because you're in for a good conversation. My dad is, how old is he now? It is 2019, so he is 74 years old. And in those 74 years, he has accomplished a whole bunch. He was selected to a grand jury prosecuting the federal government, or deciding whether or not to indict the federal government. He was elected to the foreman of that grand jury, and in the process of all the proceedings that happened, he kind of became a political activist just from the revelations that came forth. He wrote a book about it. He was later elected to the Colorado State House of Representatives, representing District 64, which is the extreme southeast corner of the state, and led the fight against the U.S. military to seize some ranch land in southern Colorado, known as the Pinyon Canyon Expansion Project. He took on the U.S. military and won. Got rallied bipartisan support at the state legislature to revoke Colorado's consent for the federal government to acquire lands for military testing or military training. So it was a pretty big deal, and when you take on the federal government, you never know what's going to happen. Well, I mean, you know what's going to happen. You just never know to what extreme it's going to be. They will fight you tooth and nail, and they do not fight fair. And so he made a lot of friends along the way, and probably even more enemies. But if you're hated by both sides of the political aisle, you're probably in the right. And I don't mean right-left in the political spectrum. I mean right in the moral sense. So anyway, he's cowboyed that whole time as well, and has done a lot of different pursuits in his life, and we'll talk about a few today, and you'll just get a kind of a good idea of where my philosophy and my storytelling style comes from. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Wesley Paul McKinley.
You are recording this from your horse?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Sounds like a lot of fun.
It's not too bad. It's people kind of like to listen to it while I'm riding pins, so it's
good.
It works out pretty good. So I got a heifer stuck in the bunk that I got to pull out, and I had to step down and get my rope back.
Okay, but you can get back on your horse, can you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, good.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I went riding the other day. I told you I'd pulled all the muscles out of the back of my legs, so
yeah.
I can't get around. I'm close to being paralyzed. Takes 2 crutches, and I kind of drag along. But I'm recovering. But I had the yard heifers. I've got some yard heifers that keep the grass and the weeds mowed down. Everybody's impressed with how I'm taking care of the yard. All I did was put up a little fence and open the gate. And it looks like I've got a real yard crew. But I do. It's the yard heifers. Well, they got out the other day, and the camel was here. I will tell you a little bit about that. That was pretty scary. And a couple of grandkids, so they got my mare for me, this little orange blossom mare that you've been acquainted with.
Yeah, and nice little mare.
I've been training her to stand by a chair I found that a chair is about the best thing to use to assist to get on. It's about the right height, and
Yeah.
it's got a back to kind of stabilize you. When your knees get bad, you can kind of stabilize on the back a little bit. And you can get the saddle strings. I put long saddle strings on the saddle a few years ago. You can get the saddle strings, and I can pull myself up on the chair, and then step over on the horse. Well, I had to hold her to make sure she didn't move. And I was in the saddle for 3 hours and felt good. That's the best I've felt since I was on a couple of weeks ago, as to get on. But it ain't pretty getting on.
Oh, well, once you get up there, you got to make sure that you stay up there so you don't have to go through that process again.
Well, that's another thing. The boys, Gray Man and Professor Cow was helping me, and we went west here, this open country west of me. They had driven off into there, and this little mare got caught in the wire. There was that smooth wire that had strung out across there, and she got caught. She stood for a little while. The Gray Man got out to lift her feet out, but I didn't dare get up. Well, she got pretty nervous about it and kind of throwed a fit. And I probably would have fallen off, but I knew if I did, I couldn't get back on, and I was 3 miles from the house, open rough country, so I had to stay on. But she bucked out of it, and I was okay. Then I never even got
good.
That. So I had a real incentive to ride.
I was telling folks the other day about how we put all that concrete in that square corral there at the boxcar underneath that gate that we were going to fill in with fill dirt. So there wouldn't be that big washout, and we ended up with the concrete and no fill dirt. And it made for a really good incentive to be pretty sticky, because every time I got kind of half sideways, I'd look down and see one of them great big chunks of concrete getting ready to cave my head in, and I pulled back up into the middle of the saddle real quick.
I know. That's a real incentive to ride. You need encouragement. When you're learning, you just need a little encouragement.
That's right. I said it's not so much my skill set as it is self-preservation. This is why I can stay in the saddle.
It is. Well, I was going to tell you a little bit about my wreck. All I did was pull the muscles out of the back, and I'm in physical therapy, get along real good. And I was keeping this from your sister, Tamara. She's the one that kind of looks after a lot of stuff, so I was being a little cautious, but she heard about it. And she was due to come in this week, but she moved it up a couple of weeks because she'd heard about this wreck. And I got real serious about getting well because she showed up with a carton of adult diapers. Yes. And a list of rules. The nursing home rules. No racing the wheelchair up and down the hall. No pinching the ladies on the cheeks. No fondling of the ladies. That's kind of gotten unpolitical anymore.
Don't be a Joe Biden.
Yeah, no Joe Bidens. And, you had to obey by the rules of the card table and the dominoes, or you would be barred from playing cards or dominoes for a couple of weeks. That was your penalty. And, of course, no alcohol at all and no tobacco snuck in or anything. She had a complete list and was acting pretty serious. She wasn't smiling when she showed me the list and unloaded the adult diapers. So I'm taking physical therapy, and I'm getting real serious about getting well. Proper motivation.
Yeah. Well, have you tried any of that CBD oil?
Oh, yeah. I've been taking it for months.
That stuff is supposed to be really good for you.
Well, I've heard that, and I'm getting better. I even tried, one of my little friends that comes down and visits with me once in a while, since I'm all alone, she comes and visits. She was telling me I should be smoking marijuana. That was great for pain and could help you sleep at night. So I tried that. And after
did you?
5 minutes, and I've never smoked. But I thought, never smoked at all, never smoked a cigarette. So I thought, well, I'd much rather do that as prescription pain medicine. everybody seems to enjoy it, so I tried it. And after about 45 minutes, she said, "Are you feeling anything?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm feeling a hell of a burning in my throat." That's the only effect I can get. I'm kind of a failure. It's kind of hard for me to get drunk, and it takes a lot. But I can succeed in that. But I can't smoke. Never liked tobacco. Never liked smoking, and I can't do marijuana. So I'm kind of a failure at a lot of stuff.
Your vices are way too healthy.
I know. I guess so. But I'm getting much better, and I've been riding this horse, and quite pleased with the progress. And my yard heifers, I was thinking I was going to have to sell them because they're getting out, and I put them out in the pasture. It was time to sell them anyway. But Dana come by, not Dana, but his kid Logan came by, so I rented them out to them. They're going to use them, and see, they're going to use them for a couple of months, and you're going to be down, aren't you, pretty soon?
Yeah, I'll be, let's see, Teed's wedding is September 14th, I believe. I'll be in town for that.
I think that's right, yeah. Well, and let's see, Logan's having a roping and a barbecue the 14th, that's 14th of August, so that's here just a week.
Oh, he's doing it down at the Alley Ranch.
Yes, yeah, he's doing it down there.
Well, they've been doing a lot of roping down there the last several years, it sounds like. And
I think they have.
Well, that's Teed and Clint were kind of telling me about that, and I didn't know they were big team ropers until just a couple of years ago here, but I guess they are now.
Yes, so, and they're entered in the ranch rodeo. They're doing some ranch rodeo stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, I know Dana used to do it quite a little bit, and Logan was always their guy that rode the bronc when I was in college, and he crippled himself up pretty good at Hugo one time. They went to that rodeo in Hugo, and it's one of those sanctioned WRCA sanctioned rodeos, and he broke his back pretty good, I think. I don't know if it broke or if it was like a herniated disc or something, but it was something pretty serious. I know he was laid up for quite a little bit.
Yeah,
and I don't know how bad That's a good one.
I've had a chuck wagon team, a cooking team in that rodeo a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Dr. Jones puts on a chuck wagon cook-off competition there every year. I wasn't able to go this year because I'd wrecked my back or my legs and couldn't walk around, couldn't get around. So I didn't go, but I've been in it several years, and I've seen them perform up there. That's a pretty good show, and it's not far from here.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's, 3 hours about up there?
About 3 hours, 4 hours. I usually go by Dr. Jones and load up a bunch of stuff and, get his wagon. I just use his wagon, get it all ready, and then I take my team and go up.
Well, I've told my listeners about old Doc Jones, but I've not told them the story about how Doc is not an actual doctor in the medical sense of the word. But
probably in you and his best advantage to not to reveal that story.
We'll save that for another time. Yeah, we'll reveal the source of his nickname one of these days, or if anybody cares to know, they can ask me and I'll tell them in private.
Yes, and I'll tell you about the court case I was involved in with Dr. Jones. He finally got divorced from Rhonda.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, officially divorced, and I was one of the witnesses in that court case, and I will explain that story at a later time.
I would like to hear that. The old Doc is for a very mild-mannered, kind of soft-spoken guy. He has some pretty brutal breakups and divorces.
He does, and a few years ago, many years ago, my mom, see, Doc was our number one wagon guy in the Kirkwell Cattle Company when we used Doc. And Mom was, you remember my mother, she was always real interested in everything that was going on, be your grandmother. She was really interested in everything that her kids did. And I don't think you were there, but she was asking me how Kirkwell Cattle Company, everybody was doing. I said, Joe, fine, JB. I don't know if you remember JB. He was our one of our cooks. I said, how's JB and, how's the horses? And she mentioned off the horses, and I give her a little report. And how's Doc Jones? And I said, well, Doc is having a little bit of a problem. Oh, no, she sure hated to see that. She sure liked old Doc. And I said, the problem is he seems to have a girlfriend, and then he's kind of got a wife, and then maybe another friend or two, and those kind of all got to talking, or they met each other. I said, he just really kind of stressed out these days. Mom said, I just don't understand that. He's such a cute little fellow. And I said, Mom, you might have hit right the right key. You're right on spot with that. And that's the problem. Such a cute little fella.
Yeah, the ladies seemed to like him for a little bit, and then they kind of seemed to really hate him after a while too.
I know. I've wondered about that. How can an individual evoke so much passion and kindness and desire, and then turn it into the worst, blackest, hardest, most destructive hatred you can imagine? But he can do that. Oh,
they do. He will turn a woman just plumb raving insane, it seems like, and I don't know what he does, because he's just pretty mild mannered. He likes to visit and bullshit a little bit, but he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't drink, and he doesn't really party. He spends most of the time either with his horses or out in his tack shop and his leather shop, and that I don't know what causes the emotion on the vitriol ends, but it comes out in force. I know that.
It does. Well, when we were doing a lot of the Kirkwell Cattle Company pilgrim trips, we had a layover of about a week. We were doing them pretty regular, and Doc Jones usually would go home and take care of his stuff, but this time he just set his camp up and kept his camp right out there in the canyons. And I said, Doc, aren't you going home? We're all going to go home for actually about 2 weeks, then we'll be started again. But no, he said, if it's okay with you, Dean, I'll just camp out here in the canyons. Well, sure, it's okay with us. But I asked him, I said, well, why are you camped out here by yourself? Well, he said he come home the other day and discovered a little problem. I said, what was that? Well, he said, remember my first wife, I got a little crossways with her, and she said, I'm just going to shoot your lying ass. And he said, I said, cock it back. He didn't know it, but she pulled a pistol out, started shooting. And he ran around behind the barn. And he said the next time he got rid of that situation. The next time, he got along just fine. And all of a sudden, the same thing. Things kind of dissolved. Went to brown diarrhea. And he was out there in the yard, and she come in, and she got in a big argument and said, I'm going to run over your lying little ass. And he said, well, put it to the floor, honey. She did. Spun the car around and tried to run over him, and he run around, and she hit the fence, but he was able to get behind the barn and curl up in the loft. She couldn't get to him. But she left. I said, well, them are both in the past. How come you're hiding out now? Well, he said, I just heard that my third girlfriend, we're having a little trouble. She went down to the body shop and ordered gun sights put on the hood ornament. When she got the gun sights on the hood, I decided I better not even be around for a while.
He does have a pretty good knack for knowing when to escape with most of his hide.
Yeah. Well, in his terms, he says you got to know when your canary legs can carry your alligator ass or your alligator mouth. A mouth. Your canary legs can carry your alligator mouth out of a bad situation.
Well, he seems to have a knack for it. I think it's the old bronc rider in him. He kind of knows when he's been beat, so he'll pick the softest place to land.
I think it is, but I sure enjoy my friendship with the good Dr. Jones.
Today's episode is brought to you by Don't Be a Gunsel, more affectionately known as the D-Bags. Mr. Josh Williams has partnered with us on this and has become our main sponsor of the show. And a little bit about Don't Be a Gunsel. This is just right from their description on their page. We are farm, ranch, and rodeo folks who are tired of posers, fakes, and wannabes. So we carved out our own brand with a simple message: don't be a gunsel. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram, Don't Be a Gunsel, and don'tbeagunsel.com. They've got some hats and some stickers, and then they always share some of the best memes I've seen. So go check them out. Buy some of their merch. If you do, use the promo code BurninDaylight and get yourself 10% off. That's BURNINDAYLIGHT. Get yourself 10% off. Get yourself some cool shit. Help a brother out. And so thanks to Don't Be a Gunsel. Go check him out.
Yeah, he's a good man. He was our wagon guy at my wedding, and did a really nice job.
He did. He sure did.
Well, what's new on the Water Wars case?
Well, it seems like they're kind of running backwards from me. The district judge, I've appealed in district court for the ruling to vacate the hearing, and the district judge is sitting on it, not doing anything. I'm being sued for $45,000 from Blake Gorley and his attorneys. It's just interesting. See, Blake Gorley is a big irrigator and a land trader. He sold $4 million worth of property to this guy, trying to get permits on land he's already sold, and I'm stopping that. And so they sued me for $45,000 attorney fees so far. And the hearing officer, he just grants them whatever they want, but now he's not doing anything. He's waiting for the district judge. And I filed a motion to have a hearing on those $45,000 fees. He made a ruling that there would be no hearing on the $45,000 fees, but he hadn't even granted the fees yet. So it's kind of something, and I'm in touch with the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's job is to uphold the laws of Colorado. And I explained that to this guy at the Attorney General's office, and he said, well, that's true, but in this case, also the Attorney General has the obligation to defend the actions of all state agencies. And I said, well, then you've got a conflict here because the state agency and I are suing each other. And he said, we do. So I said, maybe you better change your website because your website says you're protecting the laws of Colorado. And here's the law. And I was a lawmaker for several years, as you know. So I said, I'm pretty familiar with the law and how they're done and made. And we made these laws for them to be followed, and we give you the job of enforcing our law. So either put on your website, you're not going to enforce the laws of Colorado. You're going to uphold and represent the illegal actions of the state agencies. And that kind of ended our conversation.
I can't imagine why.
I can't either, but it's true. See, right now, I'm representing myself, and the Attorney General is representing the water staff. 5 of those sweet-smelling little fellas are representing the water staff, and 3 sweet-smelling little guys from the 16th Street Mall, Jankowski and White, are representing the water staff and the Gorley. So it's me against 8 lawyers. And I know there's an old saying that the person that represents himself has a fool for a client. And that's true. By representing myself, I have a fool for a client. But I realized I would much rather represent myself and have a fool for a client as to hire an attorney to represent me. Then I can say I have an attorney that is a crook, belongs to the most crooked organization, unscrupulous organization, mafia, thieving group in America. So I would rather be a fool represented by myself as represented by all of the above.
Well, I think you're right. The only difference between these state agencies and the mafia is the mafia actually did some good every now and then.
Well, yes, the mafia will.
They actually provided protection.
Exactly, and the mafia will tell you, if you don't do this, here's what's going to happen to you. Your legs will be broken, your knees will be broken, you'll be shot. But the government does not tell you that. The state agencies, not the government, but really the state agencies don't tell you that. They just go ahead and do it without your notification.
Yep. And then they'll send you a bill for it.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, you pay for it. You pay.
I always wonder, when they, like like in the Epstein case where they fine somebody so many $1,000 or $1 million if they get sued by the federal government or the state government, and then the defendant loses and they get fined in the millions of dollars. Well, that money just goes right back into the general fund, I suppose.
That's a good question. I hadn't really thought of that. I thought it went back into the agency. But
well, that would make more logical sense when you know how these agencies work, but not that is ever given to the actual victims of a crime. It seems like that in a civil court they can, right. But it's it seems like all that money goes to keep reinforcing the bad actions of an agency.
It does. I'll check that. I'll try to get a little better track on that.
It'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, well.
So you're pretty well just kind of in limbo until a judge decides one way or the other how they're going to rule on this case.
Right. And if the district judge rules that they have to have a hearing, of course, I know they're going to immediately appeal to the Supreme Court and hope the Supreme Court overrules. But the issue here is not the water taken out of the permit. The issue is a public hearing. They do not want any of this unscrupulous action, illegal actions to be made public. That's the real issue. Because all you have to do is schedule a hearing, and we'll have 2 or 3 days of presenting your opening statements, your witnesses, your arguments, your evidence. And you'll just review that, and then the hearing officer, the judge, will make a decision. That's all it is. And they do not want that. They will go to any extreme to keep that from happening because the public will be made aware. And water... You think about water or compare it to gold or oil or anything else, and you can live without oil, without gold. If we never produced another gallon of oil, what effect would that have? It would be a traumatic effect, but there would be a lot of people surviving. If you take the water away, nobody survives. You got 3 days. Makes no difference who you are, how old, young, rich or poor, black, brown, yellow, or white. It makes no difference. It's at least a half a gallon a day for life to maintain. Everything else, gold, if you never had a piece of gold, well, it would have no effect upon your life. Oil would have some effect, but you wouldn't die. But water, you only got 3 days, and then you're dead. It becomes critical after 1 day. And that's the difference here. And that's why there are some people, and everyone that can hear this should be aware, there are people that want control of your water. You think control of weather would be powerful. Wait till you get control of water. And that is coming. They are working diligently to do that. And I hear people like the case I'm involved with now with the Kansas. and I'm helping Kansas. We're working together on this. Their argument, and that's their government arguments, this is in Kansas, is this water issue that I'm working on is such a small percentage. It's a very small amount of water in the overall scheme. One of the cases is 7,114 acre-feet of water, which to us is a lot of water. But if you deny that much, if you take that amount of water, just that very small amount, out of the general, out of usage, if you denied the population that much water, that would be enough to kill about half the people would die in America in 3 days. That amount of water is 3 days of livelihood. And, man, woman, and child. So it becomes a very significant amount at that. Well, I hear your cattle in the background, Matt.
Yeah, we got a feed truck coming down the alley and some hungry cattle. So, but the listeners are used to it by now. They get to hear the cattle and the gates and me cussing my horse and everything in between. So,
okay.
But so you'll have to keep us updated on this water battle. Like you said, it is a very important issue, and it was one of the this is just a small case here, but then that Waters of the U.S. Act that the Obama administration fought so hard for, and with bipartisan support, that pretty well gives the federal government control over every body of water in the U.S., no matter how big. I mean, not much bigger than a kiddie pool, bull waller in the middle of your pasture. If that fills up with rainwater, that falls under control of the waters of the U.S., pretty much.
Anyone. And Colorado says that all waters belong to the state of Colorado. But the Constitution says the water is owned by the people, subject to administration by the Groundwater Commission, by the Water Commission. So that's pretty interesting. It's some real legal things that we're untwisting and finding out about. So you're right. I'll keep you posted and think of some questions. If any of your listeners have any questions or want any more details, I'll be glad to provide that.
Well, good. Yeah. When we get done here, we'll get your email and everything where they can reach you. But
this segment of the show today is brought to you by Chris Fogwell and Fogwell Horses. Chris is a farrier by trade who has expanded his line of expertise into leather work and has started making kind of Western-style cowboy tack in the last year or so, the last couple of years, he said. And he's trying to use it as a transition from farrier to a full-time deal. So go check out his stuff. He's Chris Fogwell is his Facebook page, and Fogwell Horses is his Facebook page, and at Fogwell Horses on Instagram. And he does pretty decent work. He's I would say he's got a little bit of learning to do. He's still trying to find his own, and he does everything by hand. He doesn't have a sewing machine or anything, so everything is hand stitched. And so the time and effort is there, and he did just a fine job on the spur straps. Is what we agreed on was spur straps, and he ended up sending me a sheath for my pocket knife as well. It was one of his first ones that he's done, so it's a little on the rough side, but the overall it'll work. It'll work just fine. So go check him out. He's he's an up and coming guy, and I like to highlight these type of people. I'm kind of like that myself. We're just small time trying to make it in the world, make a buck here and there. So. Go check him out. I appreciate his work, and I'm more than happy, more than honored to partner up with him on this little deal. And thanks again, Chris, and go check him out at Fogwell Horses.
There any other stories? I guess a lot of people would be interested about how you grew up. You're kind of a child of the Depression and the Dust Bowl. and I think they'd be pretty interested to hear a little bit about how our family started in southeast Colorado and southwest Kansas.
Well, sure, I'll be glad to share that. And you can tell everybody I was actually raised in a barn. That's why I have these funny ways.
Yeah, I'll let them know. So yeah, let's hear a little bit about growing up in the 40s and 50s in nowhere on the Great Plains.
Sure. Well, I was born in 45, and we had no electricity. The only running water was water that we run out to the windmill and got in. Me and old Uncle Dave was the main water carriers. I remember Mom actually raising a family of 6. There were 6 of us. Well, it wound up being 8. You know, there's 6 boys and Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
But when there was 6 of us, she run the household on the water that we run out to the windmill and got. Probably not over about 12 gallons, 15 gallons a day. That would be maximum. Yeah. Some days much less. Yeah. And that provided the drinking water and the water we washed the dishes. Of course, we had no bathroom. We had to use the outdoor toilet, and it just did not take much water. And if the wind didn't blow, there wasn't any water. But that really wasn't a problem because within 2 or 3 days, the wind always came back up and blew. And if we had 10 gallons of storage, that would have been plenty. And I remember walking to school and being very cautioned about be careful when the wind tips up. If you see them dirt clouds, don't get caught out in that. Because while I was born in 45, Mom and Dad had seen the 30s, and there were people that died in the 30s that get caught out in that dirt storm. So we were pretty cautious about being caught out in the dirt. Often we couldn't come home from school. Always made it in the morning, but in the evenings, the wind would come up and the dirt clouds. It's kind of neat seeing that black line develop in the west and then grow up. And then as it got closer, it had a rolling effect. You've probably heard of the rollers. And it actually looked like it was rolling. And in front of it, you would hear the birds. And there was usually a little moisture in it, very little, just enough to give the air kind of a smell. Plus that dirt that was mixed up into the atmosphere. When it got damp, it had that damp earth smell. And those birds would be chirping. And it would get just totally calm for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes before the storm hit. The wind would die down, it'd get calm, and then wham, there it would come. And the windows would rattle and shake. Mom would, and Dad would be in by then because he had seen the storm coming, so he'd come in from what he was doing outside. And they would hang up damp sheets over the windows and hold the sheets up over the windows to stop the dirt from sifting into the house, to protect us from all the dirt in the air. And those sheets would be plumb muddy when it would be over. And it would only last like 3 or 4 hours. And then the wind would go down, but there would be so much dirt in the air, it would take all night for the dirt to settle out. And, of course, as I said, no electricity. We did have refrigeration. It was run off of propane, and propane, the gas, heated the house. And the hot water was the only hot water there was a tea kettle that we put on the stove and heated the water. Because the water was all whatever temperature come out of the well, which was very cool and clear. And I remember how vital that was. I guess that's why it kind of makes me a little concerned about it, because if you didn't have any water coming into the house, you were serious. Of course, like I said, we could go for 2 or 3 days because we stored water, and that is carried over, and the kids all kind of make fun of me because whenever I empty a whiskey bottle or a wine bottle, a glass one, I fill it with water and put it in the closet, in the corner of the closet, or around the hot water heater, or wherever there's any unused space, I'll have water bottles filled with water. And whenever the storm's coming, I always take a bath before a storm. I don't bathe every day, of course. That's a waste of water. And I take a bath before the storm comes, and I leave the bathtub full, so that in case electricity goes off, because that's what pumps my water now, is I've got a full bathtub right there with a stool that I can use the stool. I don't have to go outside. And I can flush the stool and use the water for sanitary purposes in the bathtub. And then we moved over into Kansas, right at the edge, because we got so tough to make a living here. that we moved over to the wheat farm in Kansas, and that's when we lived in the barn. I was 10 years old when we moved into the barn, which, had kind of a living compartments inside of a Quonset hut. And that was much better than what we had come from. While I say I was raised in a barn, when we moved into the barn, that was a big improvement over this little shack that sat out here in the middle of the desert.
Well, I made a kitchen table out of that old house. It was, you said it was a Montgomery Ward kit house, wasn't it?
Well, a Montgomery Ward house. You could buy houses from Montgomery Ward, and it was originally bought from Montgomery Ward, and my uncle bought it and lived down there on that piece of property of Granddad's that's down there in the sand. And he bought that house from Montgomery Ward and put it together. It had bolts, and you actually bolted those sections together, and it made a little house. It was kind of a cute little house. It was probably about 12 foot wide by 24, 30 foot long. Had a little kitchen, living room, and a bedroom in it. And then Dad pulled in that other compartment that went out to the east. He pulled that in. Him and a neighbor put it on a couple of telephone poles they had salvaged from somewhere, made skids on it, and drug it in with their tractor from about 3 or 4 miles north. Those skids were just about wore out. And then they slid it off of those skids. Not sure how they did that. I was just a little fella. But I remember being very excited about the size of our house had nearly increased. And that became a bedroom for Mom and Dad, and me and Dave had our own little tiny bedroom and a living room there in the house. And it didn't much more than protect you from the elements. And the insulation factor was 0. Whatever temperature it was outside, it was the same thing inside. And then as we lived there, they planted a tree around it, and that tree really did help keep it cool in the summer. And in the winter, you just stayed pretty close to the stove. Of course, the winters weren't all that bad. And we spent most of our life outside. The being 2 of us, and then there was 4 boys, and Mom would say every morning, "You boys get outside." If we weren't in school, we were outside doing something.
Well, it's kind of how it was. How you and Mom treated us as well. It was get outside and come back in when the sun comes down, and that's pretty well how we grew up too. So, of course, we had a few more luxuries than you did.
Yeah, at least you had hot, cold running water in the house.
That's true. We were a little more fortunate.
Yes, sir. Well, it was. And the house you grew up in here, see, Jan and I built this house. We had originally moved down in a trailer house, but then the roof blew off of that, so Jan and I built this house. And I'm still here. It's very comfortable. It hasn't changed much. It looks just like it did when we finished. But being built out of rock, it's a pretty durable material.
Oh, yeah. And you just kind of salvaged all that sandstone from previous homesteads, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of this material I put in here is salvage material. And the rock outside was picked up from old homesteads, old abandoned homesteads that had laid the rock up. And I laid it up in cement. They were originally just stacked up in mud and wasn't all that great a structure. But the material never was harmed at all. So I brought the material in and we put it up in cement. They're laid it in cement. And it's been very, very durable and very comfortable. We didn't even have air conditioning where you were growing up, did we? It would get 102 degrees. Well, then after Jan passed away, Mo was with me, and Mo's from Haiti, and he suffers from the heat. So we went and got a cooler so that we could cool the Mo off, because he was pretty hot. But when we were growing up, when you were growing up, it'd be nice and cool in the morning, and we'd keep all the windows open at night. And then when it started getting hot, along towards the mid-morning, late morning, we closed everything up and kept it closed to keep the heat out and the cool in. And then when it started warming up in here, that heat would start soaking through those rocks. We would open the windows, because by the time it started getting pretty hot inside, it would be cooling off outside. Start some fans, and then we would be pretty comfortable in here.
Well, yeah, I know. I just remember right before I went to sleep in the summer, it was pretty miserable, and there was a bunch of flies. And then you didn't notice it so much once you fell asleep. But getting to sleep was a chore sometimes.
Oh yeah, but if you were tired enough, it'd come natural.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's I'm gonna use that as an excuse as to why we worked on so many projects. It was just to make it easier to sleep.
Yeah, that was a great enhancement for a good sleep. Was to be tired, wasn't it? And we always had plenty.
Yes, it was.
It still is. I've got a list.
Oh yeah.
To do when you come down. I've got a list of projects that you can help me with.
All right, sounds like a plan. Well, I think I'm gonna let you go, and we'll do this again. I think we'll make this kind of a regular segment, or a regular episode for the show. We'll just have you on and visit a little bit. So I think people will enjoy it.
Anytime, and I'll be glad to share all my water stories.
Perfect.
Okay, Matt. Thanks a lot.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
All right, be careful.
Okay, we'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. If you can't tell by now, there's a pretty good reason I tell the stories the way I do and think the way I think. That man you just listened to has had a huge effect on everything I do. He's not right about everything, but he is a very curious, he's always learning. He's always trying to learn something new, and he's taught me over the years to look at every situation from multiple angles, and you can kind of make your own conclusions from there, but don't start with a foregone conclusion until you've researched multiple angles and then come up with the best solution. And I try to do that on just about every decision I make. So I'm not always the most hasty acting person sometimes, but I mean, there's also times where I just act on impulse. But I do try to consider multiple angles, and maybe not every angle. I don't know if you can ever cover a subject from every possible angle, but I try to look at it from multiple angles and make my decision from there. And my dad is the main reason for that. It's kind of the way he acts, that's the way he operates, and I've just through osmosis and getting it pounded in my head. That's kind of how I operate, and it served me pretty well up to this point. So I'm always grateful to him for that. And speaking of that, I just got done listening to Bernie Sanders on the Joe Rogan podcast. As you know, Joe Rogan's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, and he only, excuse me, he only had Bernie on for an hour, which is for any political candidate to sit down and speak for more than, a 30-second, 45-second blurb that you get on the TV. To sit down and actually talk to somebody for more than 5-10 minutes at a time, that's always pretty good, where you can expand on some thoughts. And of course, Joe Rogan's not a super political guy. I mean, he does get into politics some, but it's not his bread and butter. He tries to be intellectually honest, and I think he does a pretty good job at it for the most part. And so, but he's not one to really push back on somebody real hard. There's sometimes he does when he calls out bullshit. But I think he was kind of fangirling a little bit. which is understandable. I really do like Bernie. I disagree with him on just about every policy issue, but for something about the guy, I like the man. I've said before, I lost a lot of respect for him when he endorsed Hillary Clinton, but I genuinely like the guy. He seems like he tries to be honest and kind of straightforward, and I think he actually believes the stuff that he's pitching. I really think he's kind of a diehard. But there's things about him that are so hypocritical that I don't know. So I'm kind of torn on Bernie, but I can't help but like the guy. It's kind of the way Obama was with me. I couldn't help but like the guy. Trump, the same way. I disagree with him on a lot, but I can't help but like him. And so I encourage you to go listen to that. At least, like I said, at least know the other side of the argument, from regardless of where you stand on it. But I think, well, I know that Bernie has had such a huge influence on how the Democratic Party acts nowadays that you really need to listen when you get a chance that such a influence. But on that note, I'm going to end it for the day. I'm going to go pin some cattle. We've got a couple loads coming in today. And we'll do it again tomorrow. We've got old friend of the family, Mr. Billy Whitfield, on tomorrow. And I think you're going to like him too. He's another kind of cowboy poet in his own right. Hell of a musician and a good friend of mine. And I think you're really going to like it. So go find me on all the social medias, Matt McKinley on Facebook, Burning Daylight on Facebook, at MickerMac85 on Twitter and Instagram, at Burning Daylight on Instagram, and at Burning Daylight 1 on Twitter and Snapchat. And then you can go search Burning Daylight on YouTube and patreon.com/Burning Daylight. Burning Daylight on the Open Range app. So go check me out. Go check out Don't Be a Gunsel and Fogwell Horses and Leather. Go check out some of the stuff he's made and support these guys and all their ventures. And keep tuning in. Go give me a review, a rating, all that good stuff. And until next time, we'll keep on moving and move your ass. We're Burning Daylight.